Hello, hello, hello. I am Otino Speaks. Welcome, welcome. If you are new here, please like, subscribe, share. Um, I start every live the exact same way. I do lean to the right. The reason I say that is because I don't want people to think I am trying to sway them in any way other than just stating my opinions and then presenting facts. I don't want to be like MSNBC and pretend to be news or pretend to be giving you information. And in reality, I'm trying to sway you into a different opinion. Um, since I have started making live streams, I have been focusing on the Black community, but overall, it's the community in general. But the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to share information that will help people who don't have it. And in turn, I think that helps the overall um, community, especially the Black community, because we seem to be behind, and I know we can do better, and I know we are better than where we are right now. So again, since starting going live, I've talked about uh, welfare and the elimination of fathers from homes. I've talked about the Moynihan report that went over the reaction to what our women did and the decisions we made. I went over Planned Parenthood and what that did to the family. I've gone over prioritizing of education over the nuclear family. I've gone over gender confusion. On our end, it's confusion. But I've gone over genders infiltrating, or the male gender infiltrating women's sports and women's arenas, bathrooms everywhere. I've gone over Black men following white liberals like Shaun King and Rachel Dolezal. I've gone over the Black church and how it's married to the Democrat Party. I've gone over reparations. I've talked about the racism of Joe Biden over the last 54 years. Um, and that's what my channel is, essentially. I'm giving information, I'm giving history, I'm giving my perspective. You can agree, you can disagree. It doesn't hurt me in any way, but hopefully you at least learn something when we go through these live streams. Again, that's my content, so if you'd like, please subscribe, go back and listen to any of that stuff. Um, what's going on, DJ Memphis? Um, the title of today's live stream is The Democrats' Path to New Illegal Voters, the True Black Replacement Theory. And I want to go over what sparked this. And I got a couple of videos, but this is what sparked it all. This tweet. And this happened in Chicago yesterday, actually. And if you can see that, hopefully you can see that. It says undocumented immigrants now eligible for standard Illinois driver licenses with federal limits. What does that mean? Uh, in California, I believe New York now, and now in Chicago, Illinois, um, illegals can get driver's licenses. I don't know how that makes sense, but for whatever reason, you can come here without any information illegally, break the law, and get rewarded with the privilege of driving. Um, and then the first comment is the one that got my attention. It's the one that down there says White Rabbit. It says illegals can get licenses, but Democrats believe black people can't. Make it make sense. Do they have to get insurance as well? How do you get insurance if you have absolutely no documentation other than the license that they gave you? When you get pulled over, in some places, they can't even ask you for your license if you're. They can't ask your legal status. If I get pulled over, they ask me for my license and registration. How did I get my license and registration? I have legal status. And I think this misses a lot of people. So when we see these little laws going through, we should always think about the implications. So what I wanted to do is go over a short video by a guy named Ami Horowitz, who addressed this issue a couple of years back. And it's going to show you what liberals think of you. Let me find that. Crap. 1 second. It's going to show you what liberals think of you, black people. Up, split it. And our ability to function in a normal society. Here we go. And The beginning of the end. All right, let's go here and hit play. Move this.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as to say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem.
Hold on, before he goes, this is what they think of you. Did you hear what they said? Black America, this is what they think of you. You can't do anything. You're I guess, a helpless little child, somehow managing to get by in society. I want to go back through that because I really like the one of those people or these people. They don't know what's going on. Let's go back.
Voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as to say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get.
These are white liberals. This is what they think of you as an adult, as a black American adult. Black man, you. Black woman, you. Listen to how helpless this is what they see you as. When you walk past them on the street, this is how they see you.
Get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
You don't know how the internet works. This is how they see you. How you doing, John Thompson? You don't know how the internet works. You don't have access to the internet. You don't even know where the DMV is. You people are pathetic. This is what they're saying out in the open. These people walk past you every day, and this is how they see you. Do you understand this? Listen to what they're saying.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida,
you guys are all convicted felons. Listen to what they're saying. If this doesn't make you go, what the? Nothing will. Nothing will. Because when I first saw this a few years ago, and I actually made a video about this, I laughed so hard at the arrogance of these people that they think they really truly believe they're better than you. They believe with all their heart that they're going to help you. They have a savior's complex. They think that you need to be saved. So every time, this is why I'm against any kind of giveaways. Every time you ask for something, you embolden these people. I'm pointing this way because that's where I'm watching it. But you embolden these people. They think that you need saving. You're a fragile little flower.
that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East
Huge
Harlem
population.
to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard.
So, a little bit more context. He did the interview in Berkeley, California. We all know what Berkeley, California is. So now he comes to New York and he's going to ask them to respond to what they heard. I believe he showed it to them. Either way, he's going to tell them. But let's see.
Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's my question.
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so like, we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy camera?
I know, right? That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that, on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity.
A perfect response. It's so insulting, but I love these responses because this is how everyone should respond. I don't know anybody who doesn't have an ID.
Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid could figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can access the internet
Unlimited.
Unlimited data.
Mm-hmm. I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word I'm hearing a lot.
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, like, but you're judging them because they're black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, "Can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, "Can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you had to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. Why did I show that? For obvious reasons. One, to show how insane these people are. These are the people who claim that they're there to help you. This is what they think of you. You're an idiot, apparently. You're a child, and you have no ability to do anything. If you're not insulted by that, you're better than me, because I couldn't be more insulted when I saw that. That's why when I saw this, it made me immediately think of that. There's no reason to give illegal immigrants, and it says undocumented, illegal documents. You're validating them being here. You're giving them the ability to vote. The reason they're against voter ID laws is because they don't have IDs. So what do? Well, let's get them IDs. It's really simple. This is not about black people, though. This shows the racism toward black people, but this is not about you guys. This just shows what they think. This is about illegal immigrants getting more documentation and validity here in this country, and apportionment is being pushed by Congress. And what that means is the more illegals they get here, they count them in the census. They didn't used to count them in the census. They started doing this. I don't know. I'll get back to you on that. But they didn't used to count illegals in the census. So the lines for Senate seats or for congressional seats, period, adjust based on U.S. citizens. Where do you move to? Is there more people now in Texas than there was 10 years ago? Yes, okay. They need more representation. This is what apportionment is. The government on the left has been trying to include illegals, and now they include illegals. So by including illegals, the more you flood into certain areas, the more representation those areas will get. And who benefits from that? Whoever can pander to the population in these areas, in these population dense areas. That is why they did something like this. Now, what sparked that is we have something going on as a result of the flooding in of illegals and trying to make them documented. This is an election year. I saw something else and I want to go over it. And it was a Dr. Phil video. And he's speaking about illegal immigration, specific illegal immigration, and what it's doing to the country. But more importantly, they're coming to our neighborhoods. This isn't a surprise. We've seen it over the last year or two since my governor, Abbott, DeSantis, have been starting to send these illegals up to the sanctuary cities. The reason they're doing that, again, is you asked for it, you got it. So I want to play this Dr. Phil interview. This is a very interesting one. So you guys can see what's going on.
Knowledge that Venezuela, for example, is emptying their prisons and their rehabilitation centers with the understanding you get out if you leave here and go to the United States.
Yes.
And DHS has, in writing, said, we know that's happening. We know they're coming here. We're processing them in and have no idea where they are.
Correct.
How many people are we talking about?
Millions.
Millions.
Just Venezuela alone.
We're talking about in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had estimated how many people have come across the border.
My estimation, the official number, I think, is about 10 million.
Yeah, it's about 10, 11 million.
Yeah,
that's the official.
But my personal opinion, I think we're about 15 to 18 million.
These are all people who've come here illegally. They're not supposed to be here. The conservative estimate is 10 to 11. That's by the government. It does not include gotaways, or that includes gotaways. That does not include people who we did not detect, who just made it. How can you put a number on that? Would you put it on the low end? I wouldn't. How do you know? There's no way to know. So when I hear these numbers, I'm like, wow, this is wild. Anyway.
Okay. And you're saying several million of those have come from Venezuela?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, a lot from Venezuela. I mean, the majority, a lot of them came from Venezuela. Now they're coming from every single part of the world. Africa, New Guinea, Mauritania, is that the way you say that one? Middle East, China, India, Syria, Yemen, Russia, you name the country, they are coming. And this is the part that a lot of people don't understand, that don't report, because a lot of these individuals that are coming from these special interest countries, that DHS labels them SIAs, like I said before, because they might be, we don't know, but they come from countries that sponsor terrorism.
Now, we heard Trump talk about this in the debate. Then we heard Biden talk about how secure the border, that he's all for securing the border. But I've also in the past on this channel, on live streams, I have a couple illegal immigration ones where we have Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Department of Homeland Security head, say they don't know how many people are coming in. He's never been to, this is the first time he's gone down to the border. It was in 2024. He's been in position since 2020. That's where we are right now. So I think it was Biden who said that there aren't terrorists coming across, but you just heard this man say that these are all countries, or not all, but a lot of these countries sponsor terrorism. How do you know they're not coming here if you don't know who's coming here? You don't close the border. Where are these people going? Where are they going?
So they would require additional screening. But we already caught over 500 of those on the terror watch list that we actually caught coming in through Arizona or Texas. Can you imagine how many we've actually missed that actually their whole purpose of coming into the United States is possibly to do us harm?
The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level.
So if that's true, which we have to assume it is, why has the focus not been securing the border? Why, when Governor Abbott started putting razor wire on our border in Texas, did the federal government sue him? Why? They sued him to stop doing it. They were literally fighting Texas for securing our border. Why? Does that make sense to you? If you want a secure border and you're not able to do it or you're not willing to do it, why would you try to stop states from doing it unless you want it to happen?
Last fiscal year, Border Patrol apprehended 564 people on the terror watch list. Of them, 484 were encountered on the northern border.
For the very first time, internal DHS data reveals the U.S. cities that hundreds of thousands of Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan migrants have flown into via a controversial mass parole program created by the Biden administration. The DHS data was obtained via subpoena by the House Homeland Security Committee, which provided it exclusively to Fox News. The data reveals that from January through August 2023, about 200,000 migrants flew into the U.S. via the Biden parole program. This is a breakdown of the top 15 U.S. cities those migrants flew into and how many arrived. The destinations include multiple cities in Florida, New York City, Los Angeles, Dallas and Houston, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Chicago, and Las Vegas. More than 161,000 migrants flew into 4 of Florida's major airports in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Tampa Bay. That means Florida received 80% of all the migrant flights during those 8 months.
Why Florida? Why Florida? 80% were flown into Florida. Now, in 2022, Florida had the largest Republican landslide win in the history of the country. It's now a red state solid. It used to be purple. Before that, it was blue. It would bounce back and forth. They're flooding in illegals into Florida to try and change it back blue. What do they do when illegals get here? What do they do to you? They promise you stuff. In exchange for what? Loyalty? Why Florida? Of all the places in this country, why Florida?
Some are coming with an agenda, are being sent. They are Chavistas sympathizers. These are Hugo Chavez people. They're socialist communists, and they're bringing that agenda purposefully in South Florida. In Dallas, Texas, South Dallas, Texas, there's an area called Via Dallas right now that is controlled by illegal alien Venezuelans.
So, every time I hear about giveaways again, I get frustrated because I don't think the people who are for them here in the United States understand what that means. They don't understand socialism. They don't understand communism. They just hear, oh, I'm going to get something for free. You got my vote. That does not work. It's never worked. Venezuela is a perfect example of that not working. And I'll explain why.
You can't go in there. Dallas PD doesn't even go in there. As a matter of fact, they're looking for private security people to try to go in there and contain the trafficking, the drugs, the prostitution, everything that's going on in there. And just like this community in Dallas, there's one in Florida, and they're all around. And it's the gang associated with Tren de Aragua, the gang, the Venezuelan gang that has attached itself to these communities and control these areas here in our country.
Mel W. brought this up, and I thought he was talking about MS-13. So when I looked into it, it's completely different, but they do the same thing. Their initiation is the same thing as MS-13. This is another savage gang brought into this country. We're flying them in. How are they getting? I just don't understand the thought process. There's an area in Dallas, Texas. It doesn't get much more American than Dallas, Texas, that is now being run by Venezuelans. Why Florida? Why Texas? Why?
Would you say there's over 1 million that have gotten in the United States from Venezuela?
I have to check on that number for you, but I would say close.
Close to 1 million?
Yeah, that's a lot of people. And that memo, by the way, I'm gonna try to get it to you. It's a memo. It got leaked. DHS admitting that in fact they were releasing them, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it across the country with the crimes that they're committing.
So Venezuela's murder rate is at the lowest it's ever been.
Yes.
Remember when Trump said they're sending us their worst? What is this? What did you just hear him say? Venezuela's crime rate is at an all-time low. Why? They empty their prisons, their insane asylums, and sent them here. They're sending us their worst. Let me move it back just a little bit. That's exactly what Trump said.
And we're seeing it. We're seeing it
was
across
called
the
a
country
racist.
with the crimes that they're committing.
So Venezuela's murder rate is at the lowest it's ever been.
Yes.
Because all the murderers have left there and come here.
Yeah.
And we know this.
The fastest growing transnational criminal organization known as the Tren de Aragua is a Venezuelan gang that has now infiltrated its way into the United States through various sectors of the U.S.-Mexico border.
Mi odisea comenzó cuando yo crucé la frontera, hace 3 años y medio. Pues yo, de verdad, yo venía a medida con mi plata y había quedado ya sin dinero. Ya había quedado sin dinero, nos tocó pasar por trocha. Cuando nosotros pasamos que no teníamos dinero para pagar. A mí, más que todo a mí, porque me tocó pagar con mi cuerpo.
Remember last week? I think it was last week, where Mel and I were talking on one of my lives about the rate of women who get R-worded crossing the border. It's like 90% of women and girls who cross get R-worded or SA'd, assaulted. Why would we sanction this? What do I mean by sanction? Anyone who's for the border being open is okay with cartels and this gang apparently doing this. You have to be. Otherwise, why would you do it? It's literal human trafficking. This is what we're doing. This is what the left wants for these people.
National dubbed the migrant influencers at the center of controversy this morning. He has been using TikTok to coach migrants how to live in the U.S. by taking advantage of laws protecting squatters. Hannah Doba reports.
In his most recent controversial TikTok video, Moreno is telling his followers to avoid living on the streets in the United States. They can, quote, invade empty homes and live there.
The problem you folks have is that you want to quote Socrates in the middle of a bar fight. Iran is not our friend. Venezuela is not our friend. President Biden keeps giving them money to buy weapons to try to kill us. Do you not understand that?
So that influencer was telling Venezuelans how to squat in your home. If you're not there, there are certain cities and states that will give you the right to stay there if you make it and you're able to be in there a certain amount of time. And then you have to go through an eviction process. This guy's telling illegals how to do that. Not just illegals, illegals from Venezuela, a socialist country. Don't go on the streets like everybody else does. Find a house, an empty house, and just stay. These idiot Americans will let you stay and run out the process. That's literally what that guy was doing.
There's a confusion right now of we need additional personnel. I always welcome personnel. The more the merrier. The more police, the better for me, for the country. But the answer is no. The answer is we need more border agents to stop this. Actually, no. Actually, the answer is no. We have enough. We have almost 20,000 Border Patrol agents. I think there needs to be a readjustment of those 20,000 Border Patrol agents and the duties of where they're at. Plus, at this point, it doesn't really matter that we have the 20,000 because they're not being allowed to be down there.
They're social workers.
Yeah, they're transporting, hospital watch, everything else that they're making them do. So it is not. But if you were to go back to enforcement, I always welcome more personnel. The more the merrier. But we have enough. And
the criminals who committed those crimes are responsible for their criminal conduct.
They wouldn't have been into this country had you not allowed them in through your open border. Do you ever call up the families of the crime victims? Do you ever talk to Laken Riley's family?
Senator, as I stated previously, all of our hearts break for the loved ones of those who have been lost at the hands of criminal conduct.
Good. Okay, so your heart is broken. Do you have regrets? Do you admit your culpability here? Do you admit that your actions have resulted in the deaths and the murders and the assaults of thousands of Americans? I've got the CBP.
And before he even gives that, most of those people who are victims are minority communities. It's Black people and other Hispanic people. So every now and then a white person gets assaulted and it's a bigger story, but that's not the majority who's getting harmed by these illegals. It's just not. It's where they go, which is high population density areas and the inner city.
Statistics here. Assault and battery up 5.7 times over the last few years what it was in 2020. Homicide up 17 times. Again, these are from keep people in this country illegally.
So their own crime stats are multiplying 17 times, 5 times of the crimes of illegals, that specific category. Not overall, just within that demographic, that's what's happening.
Sexual offenses up 2.5 times. Again, that's the direct result of your actions, of President Biden's actions. Quite honestly, of actions of Democrats in the Senate who refused to vote to complete the wall, which would have helped. It's not the full solution. The full solution is actually having a president and Secretary of Homeland Security that wants a secure border. Our problem is we have a president, a Secretary of Homeland Security, Democrats in Congress, who want an open border that caused this problem, and they won't admit it.
But this virtual flood of pills, both into and through Arizona, which has dramatically worsened under the current administration, allowed my boys to make choices they may not have without the current open border crisis.
But because it's a silent killer with these counterfeit pills, there's no urgency. I don't know of any other terrorist organization, not ISIS, not the Taliban, not anyone that has killed as many Americans, but the cartels have. And that's why I'm in favor of labeling them as terrorists as well, so we could be able to approach them in a different manner.
Nearly 108,000 Americans died of drug overdose in 2022. That's according to recent government data. That figure is a record. And of those, more than 2/3 were linked to synthetic opioids, mainly illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
A powerful painkiller.
Fentanyl is supplied by China through Mexico into this country. It just is. So every time Biden downplays China as an adversary. This is what he's saying. He's saying, no. They dismiss it, and they want to focus on Russia, who has absolutely no impact on this country. None. But you got to defend Ukraine. So Russia.
Known as fentanyl, is responsible for one of the deadliest drug crises in the United States. It is the leading cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45, and it can kill people who don't even know that they are taking it.
Why is nobody talking about this?
Well, that's the frustrating part. There's very few of us out there trying to do something about it and bring this awareness. Because one of the things I tell people, at least be aware, at least understand. No longer the days of being ignorant and bliss about this. You have to at least acknowledge that you have to know that this happens.
As they rallied Wednesday, the Biden administration announced it will grant temporary protected status to Venezuelans who came to the U.S. before July 31st of this year. That will expedite work authorization for about 472,000 Venezuelans seeking asylum in the U.S.
Venezuelans are beautiful people. I employ one who has a home on the beach. That if it were here, it'd probably be worth about $600,000. It is worth absolutely nothing there. So much so that she came here. Now, she came here legally, but the crash that happened there, I have a video on it, was a direct result of what we want and what when we hear Joe Biden on the campaign trail offering us stuff. I'm going to show you why I'm even doing this. It is exactly what happened in Venezuela.
Including up to 60,000 Venezuelans who have come to New York in the past year.
The report reveals that Venezuelans have become the largest nationality for illegal border crossings, replacing Mexicans for the first time on record. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials, Venezuelans were arrested nearly 55,000 times last month by Border Patrol after entering from Mexico.
From Venezuela now temporarily protected and able to work.
This move from the Biden administration comes as New York leaders continue to apply pressure for more help with the asylum seeker crisis.
Do you think there are people that are coming over that have the intent to do our neighbors, our friends, our family members harm?
Absolutely. These huge give-up groups that we're getting, the media is only reporting what they can report on, right? Which is, statistically speaking, a small percentage of the actual bad guys that we're catching.
All right. If that doesn't worry you, I don't know what will. Because they're openly admitting that there's new gangs coming into this country, and I looked. A lot of them have been moved straight to Chicago and to New York. So when the violence upticks, this is a major part why you're having people come here who are not like our gangs. Our gangs shoot. They used to fight, but now they shoot. These gangs chop off limbs to make their point. It's not the same. It's not what we're used to. And again, they're going to areas that are low-income areas, who right now are in the low-income areas, Black and Hispanic people. That's what this is. But I wanted to share this because this is why these people are coming here. This is why they had to empty their prisons. They can't afford to feed the people in their prisons in Venezuela. They can't even afford to try these people, so they send them here. Trump told us about this in 2015 before he got elected. And they called him racist when he said they're sending their worst. He said they're emptying their prisons, and they called him racist. He's a bigot. Now, here we are, almost 8 years later, and the same thing's happening. But it's worse now because they're already here. Millions of them are here. But I want to play this because this explains why we should not be so willing to accept stuff as Black Americans, as anyone really, honestly. Nothing good comes of it. But I want to show you how fast things turn.
Venezuela is facing its worst economic crisis in decades. There are food shortages and water outages that have sparked rioting across the country. Inflation is estimated to be the highest in the world at around 500% and rising. Worse still, infant mortality is rising by 20%. There are constant blackouts with reports that neurosurgeons are finishing operations with only the light from their smartphones. This is a far cry from a decade ago when Venezuela was the richest country in South America and its socialist leader, the swashbuckling former paratrooper Hugo Chavez, was determined to improve the lives of the country's poorest.
I remember when he got in office, this was in the 90s, he's an idiot. And he started making promises that sound just like Joe Biden. He attacked the media and got them all in line so that they all started saying the same thing. Just like we talked about the other day, the media fell in line and the media repeats the same talking points. Our media is exactly what he got his media to do. They push a propaganda war. What else did he do? He took over private industries. He took over oil and gas. He took over grocery. He took over, well, he made it illegal to sell water. All the things that he implemented, in theory, may sound good, just like most socialist programs. But what it ends up doing is it creates a dictator.
And he had the money to do it, all because of one commodity, oil. But more specifically, the price of that oil. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves and is a major oil exporter.
The largest oil reserves, and they are completely broke. They can't even afford to keep their prisoners and care for them. That's why they're sending them here.
In fact, the black stuff accounts for 95% of its total export. So, throughout the 2000s, during the oil boom, Venezuela was in a strong financial position. However, all that changed in 2014. Following Chavez's death a year earlier, the oil price that the government was so heavily dependent on dropped by half in 6 months.
The decline in the price of oil is a well-known fact. So why then has Venezuela's economy seen such a violent and prolonged reaction while other oil-producing nations haven't? To answer that question, we have to go back to when Venezuela's problems really started, 2003.
That year, there was an oil workers' strike, brought about by opposition leaders in an attempt to overthrow Chavez's government. It meant the country stopped producing oil and therefore stopped making money. It was a critical time for Chavez.
What did Biden start doing as soon as he got into office? He raised regulation on big oil. He demonized big oil and made it impossible for them to produce oil. Remember when he was saying he was going to end fracking, he was going to get rid of oil, big oil? So what do? We had to start relying on foreign governments for our oil, including Venezuela. The ideas sound good because he thinks it sounds good to say we're going green. But we got to a point where we used most of our oil reserve that Trump had built up and started asking dictators like Chavez, and we had to go to Iran and Saudi Arabia and all these other countries and start, even China, and asking them for oil instead of just drilling. But what happened when we started doing this? You guys remember inflation?
The country needed to keep importing, but it was facing a perfect storm. Not only a collapsing oil price, but also a collapsing currency versus the dollar. On the advice of the late Fidel Castro, Chavez decided to fix the exchange rate.
What does our government keep doing with our money, our currency? We are fixing the rates. We are printing more money. That's what we're doing. We're doing the same thing. We cut oil production. We're a self-sufficient nation. We have enough to need very little importing of oil. Matter of fact, we were exporting. Everything he did is what the left wants to do here, is what Joe Biden started doing, is why our inflation skyrocketed almost instantly. Bash big oil when absolutely everything that we do in some way or form involves oil, natural gas. Everything we get, everything we have has to be transported. How do you transport? Oil. Oh, that's why the entire globe started suffering during the demic word. That's why.
In order to keep the whole economy stable. Not only that, but he brought in a rule which meant that if you wanted dollars, you had to buy them from the government. And this is the moment where many argue Venezuela's economic time bomb started ticking.
You had to get your money from the government. Why are they against cryptocurrency? Why are they against cryptocurrency? This is a good topic for Biz. We'll talk about that later. They want centralized currency. They do not like that cryptocurrency does not rely on the dollar. This is exactly what happened in Venezuela.
Because Chavez's emergency economic plan is still in place today. But for years this wasn't a problem, as the price of oil continued to rise, filling the government's pockets. Jump forward to 2013 and El Comandante himself, Hugo Chavez, died. His former finance minister, Nicolas Maduro, became president, promising to keep Chavez's economic legacy alive. But a year later comes the dramatic drop in the price of oil.
So new President Maduro went to OPEC to try and convince the other members to cut production to help shore up prices.
What did Biden do during the demic time? He went to other nations, but he was begging them for production, to be fair to him. He was begging the opposite. But the reason he was doing it is because we needed the oil, but at the same time, he did not want to produce. The reason Venezuela did it is because they wanted to produce their own oil, and that would put some relief on their dollar.
But they couldn't agree.
For years, Chavez's legacy was all about offering subsidies to the poor. And in that time, Venezuela overspent their oil revenue. So within the 6 months of the price drop, there was a huge shortage of dollars, essential for the country to function. Because of the shortage, the government refused to sell their dollars unless it was absolutely necessary. In order to keep providing subsidized gasoline and services in healthcare, housing and education.
What does the Democrat Party promise? Housing, healthcare, and education. It's been done. There is a map, a proven map in South America and in some parts of Central America. It's been done. It doesn't work. You cannot subsidize a country. You just can't. This is what happens when you do that.
The government pegged the official exchange rate as 6 bolivars to $1. That led to a massive explosion in black market currency trading. Less dollars meant its currency black market value shot up. So now there's different prices in different markets, and many Venezuelans took advantage.
So people would scam the government into selling them dollars at the official exchange rate for a holiday to America, for instance. But instead of going abroad, they would actually sell those dollars on the black market for a much higher price.
Remember when mom or aunt or somebody used to sell food stamps?
Making them a small fortune.
Rather than accept currency market forces, the government kept its peg and continued to borrow and print more money.
Sound familiar? It's been done, people. It's been done. Watch how far this crashes and how fast this crashes. Because this started in 95, 96 when Chavez got in office. 8 years later, they were the richest country in South America. 8 years later, they are the brokest country in all of the Americas.
As a result, inflation soared. To hide how bad the economy really was becoming, the government stopped reporting inflation data. But across the country, the price of goods continued to rise.
Remember when Biden said inflation was 0? They just started lying. They changed the definition of inflation and started reporting on core inflation. It's been done before. Look, please look. This is the only reason I'm playing this. We're in an election year. Our government has been doing this same thing over the last 3 years. They're promising this same thing. Look at the shelves. You remember when we were out of Similac? You remember when we were having the transportation crisis? When all those ships were out at sea? They couldn't get here? We didn't have anybody who could work the stuff? Remember? You forget already?
And price controls did little to help. Now, in 2016, Venezuelans are facing a situation akin to the Weimar Republic in Germany. Store owners are weighing money instead of counting the notes.
The dollar is worth nothing. They weigh the money. You walk around with bags of cash because it means so little.
And not only going up in price, but staples such as rice, milk and consumer goods like toilet paper and condoms are also becoming a rarity, leading to people standing for hours in long lines at stores. Under pressure to act, President Maduro has brought in new measures. School days and office hours have been cut, borders have been temporarily closed to stop smuggling, and the 100 Bolivar note has been taken out of service. And new, higher denominated notes are being introduced. Even more poignant, Christmas toys have been seized from big retailers and distributed to the poor.
For the greater good. You guys selling toys. How dare you sell toys? The kids need them for Christmas. The government took them and redistributed. The redistribution of wealth doesn't work. The redistribution of anything private does not work. You're looking at it right here. This just happened right around the time Trump got elected. Now, again, it started earlier than that, but the actual crash just happened. And what do? During the demic, we start repeating the stuff that we saw fail.
And throughout the economic and political turmoil, of course, Venezuela is still exporting billions of dollars worth of oil. But it's not enough to help pay for the government's ongoing subsidies. Some are hoping that OPEC's recent agreement to slash production will keep pushing oil prices higher. Enough at least to ward off the very worst of Venezuela's economic problems.
They were the main ones we got oil from during the time of the demic. They were happy to give it to us because they have so many government social programs that they can't afford to pay for them. Their money is worth nothing. We just saw this happen.
But most analysts agree the country needs to diversify away from its reliance on a single commodity. And ultimately, it's up to the country's lawmakers to agree on how best to implement those much-needed reforms in order to bring about change.
So, when you get promised something from the government, it costs someone somewhere. In our case, it costs the taxpayers. They raise the debt ceiling. If you had a credit card, they give you a limit on what you're supposed to spend. Kids will start out with $300, $500. Then they'll raise it up based on you paying the bill. Can you handle this debt? Yeah? Okay, we'll raise the limit. Our government does that on its own. Our government says, I have a credit card and I'm raising the limit. You can't do that. It doesn't work because you're the one who's irresponsible. This is what it led to. So now we have Venezuela can't even afford to house their own criminals, and they send them here. And when they get here, they'll get votes because they'll start giving them stuff. Why? Because these people expect. You heard the guy say in Dallas, they're bringing their ideologies with them. They expect to be given things. They tell each other how to get free housing here. If we give them things, they're going to vote Democrat. In the 60s, we saw this with Cuba. The same guy who gave United States welfare, Lyndon Johnson, did the same thing for Cuba. Now, Cuba's a little bit different, but it still shows that you can't just give people stuff. Cuba's different because it wasn't an economic migration. Cuba was a political, I don't want to say it was more political exiles or refugees, because under Castro it was worse than what Maduro and Chavez were doing, because he ruled with an iron fist. So you dissent from him, you die, or you just disappear. So people were leaving Cuba by the thousands and heading here, and we came up with some ways to legalize them here because they couldn't go back. So we came up with a thing in the 90s. Clinton came up with wet foot, dry foot, or wet feet, dry feet. And what that did was that allowed Cubans to get here. If they can get here, they can stay, or they sped up the immigration process for them. What's going on, Bolo? If they couldn't get here, we sent them back, but there was really nowhere to send them back because you're now a traitor to Castro. So we worked it out. Then Obama, right before he left office, when Trump came in, he stopped the wet foot, dry foot policy, and it really upset Cubans. Why did they stop that policy? Two reasons. One, Cubans are conservative, so they stopped voting Democrat. Straightforward. And then the other reason is he was trying to normalize and get, I don't know why, he was working with the Castros to normalize trade or re-begin trade, because we had so many sanctions against Cuba. We did not deal with them. Rightfully so. But while trying to negotiate this deal with the Castros, Obama stopped allowing what we would call illegal alien Cubans to come here and get citizenship here, essentially. And when that happened, we got Cuba's best, because Castro started seizing assets, started shutting down businesses, taking over businesses, and those people came here and rebuilt here, which is why Miami is the way it is. It boomed for a reason. These were all entrepreneurs. These were business people. They weren't coming here for economic purposes. They were coming here because they were exiles. They were forced out. And that's the difference between what we're seeing now on our southern border versus what we saw with Cuba. That is all I have. It was a lot. It was a little bit different, but it leads to the same place. A government giving you free stuff is not good for the government, and it's not good for you. It costs somebody else. It's really that simple. Our inflation, our oil production, everything that Chavez and Maduro did, we did, or we're doing right now, and that's what the left is pushing. They demonize big oil when big oil is responsible for pretty much our entire economy, because you don't have access to anything without oil. That's why they're trying to switch it out for clean energy, electric. That hasn't been mastered yet. Sorry. Oil is where it's at. You can say, I don't like BP, I don't like Chevron, or whatever companies that are out there, but they make the world go round. No matter how much Biden wants to admit that, we saw it when he started begging dictators and people we call evil for oil. Just like Chavez ran, just like Maduro ran to beg for them to stop making oil so he can produce oil. They're like, why would we? It doesn't make sense. Why would we stop producing oil so that you can get money? Because you're broke. You're broke because you're an idiot. And now our policies and our politicians are stupid. And they make no sense. And we're going down the same path to socialism. We see where that goes. I just showed you where it goes. What do you think? What do you think? Would anyone like to talk about this? I do this all the time, but it's fascinating to me because we see it playing out. Our government is playing it out in front of us. We know it doesn't work. And we still fall for it. We still fall for the free programs. And as we were going through, I showed you, they made the exact same promises that you hear Biden making every election. He's been in office for 50 years. 50 of the last 54 years he's been in office. He was going to do something. Why didn't he do it already? Why? I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. I just know when I hear somebody talk about free stuff, I don't even care if it's reparations, whatever it is it going to cost the country money? Yes, okay, then we can't do it. Because we can't control what people do with this stuff. Let me see. I did have something else. I wasn't going to play it though. No, I don't need to play it. If no one's going to come up, I can start thanking everybody now. I can say, I appreciate you, Amber C. I appreciate you, DJ Memphis, John Thompson, Bolo VNR, Vince the Sniper, Genesis 1. I appreciate you all stopping by. Hopefully, if you didn't learn something, there's something in there that'll make you go look up something that'll lead to you learning something. I appreciate everyone who comes in. I appreciate everyone who watches after the fact. This is all I want to do is throw some information out there, some good stuff, some positive stuff. It may not be positive per se because the topic is inflation. But if you learn about it, it can lead to something positive by you saying, nah, I'm good. Leave me alone. The government needs to leave me alone. Stop spending money. The more people who say that, the more people hold their local governments responsible for spending. And the more local people get held responsible, that bleeds upward. That's how our republic works. But we've got gangs coming here. We've got criminals coming here. And it's known and it's acknowledged by our own government. And no one seems to care. I don't know. As always, I can always use a fresh wind. If you want to donate to the Cash App, support the channel, please like, subscribe, share. I will be back. What's today? Tuesday. I should be back again this week. I gotta go live at least twice a week. At least twice a week. I really, really do. If not, I gotta put something out, put out a video or something. So I will be back by the end of this week. Now that I said it, I have to stick to it. I put it out there. I have to stick to it. Again, I appreciate everybody. Thank you again. Like, subscribe, share. Check out my last few videos. They've been actually doing really good, especially on Rumble. Holy crap. I'm getting a lot more views on Rumble than I am even here on YouTube now. Those two, the one with Biden, and I showed all the racist stuff that he said and done, is done really well. And then the one, my recap on the election is doing really, really well. What other one did? I did a Hunter Biden one on Rumble, did really, really well also. So I'm going to keep going down this path. Again, like, subscribe, share. Appreciate you guys. Got some music for you. Here you go.